All right, today we are building a brand new gaming PC for my friend Alvaro here. He's never built a system before. It's his first time, which is probably why he wants to build it himself, right?
Yeah, I mean, just want to make sure we don't break a system like you did last week.
The GPU's dead. GPU's dead. CPU's probably dead too, aren't you? You're probably dead too. F me. F me.
Wow, already throwing shade in the intro. Nice, nice. Well, I guess you have a point. All right, first things first, motherboard and CPU. We're gonna install the CPU first, so you can actually unbox both of these. Take it out of the packaging. This beautiful ROG Strix B550i gaming.
Start taking it out.
Asus. Yep, go ahead and unbox that guy. All right, now you can go ahead and open up the CPU box, and you might be wondering why the box is so huge for a little chip. It's because it actually comes included with a cooler, but we have an aftermarket cooler that we're gonna be adding instead, so you can just toss that aside, or I can put this aside for you.
Oh, wow.
It's a good stock cooler, but we have a better one today. So there's your processor, the AMD Ryzen 7 3700X.
Oh, wow.
Would have loved to get you a shiny new 5000 series chip, but those are really hard to come by right now.
Oh, wow.
That being said, this is still a fantastic CPU for multitasking, gaming. Got 8 cores, 16 threads. So at this point, what you want to do is open up that box further, and there will be a little clamshell case in there with your CPU. Now, this part's kind of tricky. Well, it's not tricky, but it's important to note that you really want to just grab the CPU by the edges, by any of its 4 sides. You don't want to touch those gold pins on the bottom.
So don't touch those.
Don't touch those, and you don't want to really touch the heat spreader, which is the metallic part on top.
So stay on green.
So just stay on green if you can, you know, and if you accidentally slip or whatever, it's not the end of the world. Just try to do your best. Oh God, no, I'm just kidding. You're totally fine.
That's not cool. That was not cool.
I'm gonna try to give you a few heart attacks throughout the day. All right, so now that it's in your hand, you can actually lift up that bar. See if there's like a little metal bar. You want to pull it, swing it out to the side, and then lift it upwards, almost like an e-brake. And then you want to match up. So there's a certain way that you have to put the CPU into the socket. And you'll notice that on one of the corners of the CPU, there's like a golden triangle. It's really tiny.
Right
yep.
there.
And then you'll also notice that on the socket itself, there's also another triangle. They make it very hard to see on some of these boards, but that's your triangle right there. You kind of see it? It's like right in the corner.
So how do I drop it in without?
You kind of just want to like grab it from, you know, the sides. I usually just use one hand, one finger on each side, perfect. And then just slowly lower it into it, you know, and you'll sort of get a feel. It's okay if you need to slide it around slightly until it drops in. Yep, just like that. And you don't need to put any pressure on it. As soon as it drops in, you're good to go. All you need to do is lower that bar again, put it back in place. That'll actually secure the pins to the pinholes. There you go. You've just installed a CPU. Congratulations.
That was nerve-wracking.
It can be a little nerve-wracking at first, but a lot of these components are a bit more resilient than they seem. All right, next up, I think what we want to do is install the M.2 drive. We'll just get that out of the way here. Corsair MP600, 2 terabyte NVMe PCIe Gen 4 drive. In layman's terms, it's fast as hell.
Nice.
And it's a really good capacity as well. So you can go ahead and open up that box. And do you have any idea where this installs to?
I'm assuming it's gonna go here. That's as far as I've gotten.
That's correct. No, you're absolutely right. It's going to go straight under the motherboard. A lot of motherboards these days will have an M.2 slot on board.
That's so small.
So notice that the M.2 drive here also has this giant heatsink on it, right? And that's great unless your motherboard already has a built-in heatsink. In that case, we need to remove that one, the one that's on the Corsair drive. So the way you want to do that is just, yeah, exactly.
Clips on the side?
Yep, pretty self-explanatory. And then we want to sort of prep the board because right now we don't have direct access to the M.2 slot. It's actually being covered by this heatsink right here. So we're gonna need a little screwdriver. Where's the little guy?
Before that, this video is brought to you by cdkeyoffers.com, a cool website I found for all of your game keys and software key needs. You can find keys for really cheap and they're reliable. And I just so happen to really need a Windows 10 Pro key for a system that I just built. Let me punch in my payment information really quick. Buy now. All right, here's my key. And the system's already activated, but we can just change the product key to the one we just bought. And if all goes smoothly, activate. It works, yay. So super legit. Go ahead and follow the link in the description below, guys, and be sure to use the code BW20 for 20% off any of the keys or orders that you make at cdkeyoffers.com.
So here you go. Go ahead and unscrew those 2 screws that are in the heatsink plate there. And Alvaro does construction work, so I mean, you're used to using screwdrivers and power drills all the time.
Yeah.
And like screwdrivers is like, that's mainly the only thing that you need. It's really the only thing you need to build a PC, so you should feel right at home here.
Am I doing something wrong? It doesn't feel like I'm just stripping it.
Oh, is it not big enough?
Whoa, what?
This is coming out, yeah.
Yeah, you're good.
And these are tools on a different scale than I'm used to.
Yeah, that's probably very true. I don't think you could build a house with that little screwdriver. So there it is. So you've exposed the M.2 slot, and now you'll also notice that there's a standoff right here, like a raised standoff with another screw in that. So that's what's gonna actually hold this drive down to keep it from popping up, which means you need to remove that screw first. So now you can go ahead and install the actual drive, and notice it's keyed where the gold contacts are. So for starters, you also wanna make it facing up so that the controller, this is the controller, the gray part here, make it face up, which looks great, and go ahead and slide it into the M.2 slot, kind of at an angle, like a 45-degree angle. Oh, a little bit higher?
Right here?
A little higher? Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
So you can pop it in sort of at an angle, like a 45-degree angle first, and it should like slide in.
Do I have to push it in further, or?
So lift it up like 45 degrees, and then slide it inwards towards the slot. You should feel it go in.
Yeah.
Now you can go ahead and screw it down. We decided to go with a mini ITX system for you because you want to save space on your desk, right?
I do. I have a pretty small office den. And I'd like to keep my work area as small as possible so I can enjoy the rest of the room.
Yeah.
Whoop.
Oh, totally fine. Everything's fine. You're supposed to.
These are more
some
rigid
things are
than
supposed to go wrong. You're supposed to have a few things go wrong when you're building a
But-
PC for your first time.
These are more rigid than I think, right? Because this is like,
Yeah, no, you're
this is
totally
surgery
good.
to me.
No, yeah, you're totally fine. You're not going to hurt anything.
Awesome.
So at this point, you can look at the underside of that plate, that heatsink, and you'll notice that there's a thermal pad there, right? But it's got a piece of plastic that needs to be removed. So go ahead and just peel it off, and now you can just pop it back into place where it was, covering the M.2 drive. Yeah, it's just there to keep the temperatures in check. Or are you talking about the thermal pad?
The thermal pad, yeah.
Uh-huh, yeah, right. That's basically just to help dissipate the heat that's gonna be coming off of the controller. M.2 drive installed. So at this point, there's a couple different things we could do next. You could install the memory, but what I typically like to do is install the water block of your AIO first. That way your memory sticks aren't in the way, because you have pretty tall heat spreaders on these things.
Okay.
And you don't want them interfering with your work while you install this guy. So this is the Phanteks Glacier 1 240 MP. I've never used this AIO before. It's actually, I think it's the first AIO from Phanteks. And we'll be using a Phanteks case as well, building inside of their P200A ITX, which should be launching at the time of this video coming up. So we'll be talking more about the case, the building experience in that chassis. It's actually a pretty premium looking ITX case. I'm looking forward to seeing what they've done with it. And it's the first ITX case that Phanteks has released in quite some time, so it should be interesting. But here's your AIO. Let's see how Phanteks did this, because here's where things get a little tricky with PC building. Everything else is pretty standard, installing the CPU, M.2, regardless of the brand you get, unless you're talking about AMD versus Intel, it's all pretty universal.
Okay.
You've installed one CPU, you've installed them all, but CPU coolers are different and they vary. The installation method varies from brand to brand. So you kind of have to read the manual on this one. We'll just take a look here. You have the 240 millimeter, and we're on socket AM4, which is right here. We do have to remove the brackets on either side.
These two right
Yep,
here.
exactly. So some CPU coolers will actually utilize these brackets. I mean, you can leave them installed, but in this case, they've got a different method going on, so you can go ahead and remove those.
So we're removing the stock one, so it goes in with my Phanteks Glacier 1.
Yep.
How do you not have arthritis or carpal tunnel from working with stuff this small?
I probably will in like a couple of years. It's just a matter of time. All right, cool, looks good. So at this point, we're pretty much ready to start mounting the block onto the CPU and board. So this is your water block. There's also an integrated pump here that's actually cycling the water through this loop here. It's an enclosed loop. You can see we've already got pre-applied thermal paste. Okay. So I guess we could use that, but you know what? Just because it's your first experience, I'm gonna remove this and we're gonna have you do it manually, because they actually did provide, Phanteks did provide some a tube of thermal grease as well. And because I think applying the thermal interface material is for fun. I don't want to deprive you of that for your first build. So here, I'm going to give you a job. Here,
I'm
take
actually
some
nervous
of this.
about this.
You are going to remove the thermal paste on there using that solution and paper towel.
Nice.
So pretty much all you're going to do is drop a couple drops on there and then just start rubbing it off. It'll come off like butter.
So we're looking for squeaky clean, right?
That's right. That's how we like it. Yeah, that looks great. Beautiful. So you can go ahead and put that down for now. It's all nice and clean. Here's your thermal paste. Oh, and you know what? There's actually one more step that I want you to do before we apply the thermal paste, and that is swapping out this bracket. So this retention bracket, this is actually for Intel systems. Since we're using AMD, you're gonna wanna use this plate instead. So the way that comes off is you kinda have to like put pressure on it. Oh,
Like that?
Yeah,
All right.
just like that. Yeah, right. he's a Phanteks plant. There you go. Cool. So at this point, we are ready for thermal paste application. I typically just like to do the grain of rice method, which basically means you apply about the size of a grain of rice or like a small pea, right to the center.
Right to the center.
You know, you just kind of want to squeeze it gently. You don't want to splurge all over it.
You're teasing me, you naughty naughty.
It could be like a fat grain of rice, you know. Yeah, that's perfect actually. Very nice. Beautiful application. Now, the way you want to do this is pretty much go downward with even pressure on all four corners. And once you get down, kind of hold it in place firmly down so that it doesn't lift. You don't want it to lift up off the CPU because that'll ruin the contact between the block and the CPU. So go ahead and start screwing these on. So yeah, once you've got those on there, go ahead and tighten them down, you know, as firmly as you can, as firmly as reasonable. You don't have to like overkill it, but just so that they're finger tight. All right, you ready for this guy now? You sweating? You doing all right?
This is, for me, this is intense. This is, it's not as easy as you make it seem, but it's also not as complicated as I thought it was.
Right, yeah. I think it's just a psychological barrier that you have to overcome.
Yeah.
But what you're actually doing physically is very simple, you know, screwing things in, putting things down. But we can move on to this guy. Yeah, just leave the wire out of the way. Very nice. Good design, Phanteks. Thank you for making this idiot-proof for myself as well. I think that's pretty much it for the water block installation. Oh, you know what you can do? You can plug in your pump. So this is the pump, this is how it gets power. And where I usually plug this in is if you have a header on your motherboard that's labeled AIO pump or pump of some sort. And I do see one right here. So you can see that this over here says CPU fan on the far left.
So I'm putting this one on the far
second
right.
one.
The second one.
Yep. So make sure that you line it up right. Yep. Because it is keyed. Fantastic. All right, moving on to memory installation. The first thing you want to do is to actually pull down any tabs that are on the DIMM slots. So all DIMM slots will have at least one tab on one side. Some of them are double-sided. This one's only one-sided, so there you go. You're already done there. Take one of your sticks, and notice how the notch in the connectors there is keyed. It's not exactly centered, so you want to line that up with the notch in the DIMM slot. You slide it up right into those notches, exactly, and you want to push downward with even, firm pressure on both sides until it clicks in. You got to do it pretty firmly. It'll feel like you're putting a lot of pressure, which is normal. There you go. And just do the same thing with the other one. Beautiful. So at this point, you pretty much prepped your motherboard, all you need to, before we install it to the case.
Okay.
So we're finally ready to bring out the chassis. So again, this is the Phanteks Eclipse P200A ITX case. But the reason I chose this case, apart from the fact that it's new and I really like Phanteks cases, is because it's small form factor, but it doesn't really compromise on being able to fit a lot of full-size hardware. It's a very nice looking case. It's kind of like a miniature P300A, if you guys are familiar with that case from Phanteks. Just looks like a shrunken down version of that. Full mesh front panel, which is going to be great for airflow. It's got a nice tempered glass side panel, so you can see all the components on the inside when we're done with it, and we'll talk more about it as we go about the build. But for starters, let's go ahead and get it on its side so that this side's face down, and you'll go ahead and remove that tempered glass panel. There might be some screws on the end.
It says pull
Here, yep, so maybe from that angle. Yep.
There we go.
Nice, push pin design. And you'll notice there's an accessory box in there. You can go ahead and take that out. Oh, interesting. So we've got a top-mounted power supply in here. That's kind of cool. So it used to be the case, pun intended. You'd often have to install your standoffs before you installed the motherboard, which are these little pegs that are sticking up. You can see there's 4 of them, right? One on each corner. And that's basically to lift the motherboard off the case ever so slightly, just so that when you power it on, none of these electrical parts, none of these conductive areas are touching the metal on the case. That would be
So it doesn't
very
short
bad.
out.
Exactly. I can already do that on my own, as you well know. So what we're gonna do now is, since those standoffs are already installed, you can just go ahead and mount the motherboard straight in. So, oh, wait, there's one thing that we have to do before that. A lot of motherboards these days have a built-in I/O shield, so you don't have to worry about it. This one does not. So go into your motherboard box, and you should find like a rectangular plate that has punch-out holes for all of these connectors. There it is. So go ahead and open that guy up. You'd pop it straight into the case. So from the inside, yep. And you just want to apply firm pressure around all the edges until it kind of snaps in. And now you can just take your motherboard. I usually just, you know, I pick it up gently. With a mini ITX board that's not very heavy, I usually just kind of and just gently slide it in there and kind of line up all those ports on the back to the IO shield. So now you can go into your accessory box that came with your case, and you want to find a small bag of screws that will fit into those threads so we can mount the motherboard. So some other things I'm observing about the P200A case here is that there's 3 expansion slots, so you can do triple slot cards. And it also looks like there's fan mounting points at the bottom of the case with a lot of ventilation, so you could actually direct some pretty nice airflow to your GPU.
All right.
Yep, looks great. And I think it's just pretty much halfway there. Next up, I would say radiator installation. Now, it looks like the only real place we want to install this radiator or can install it is at the front, because your graphics card's going to go down here at the bottom. Otherwise, I'd say maybe there might be radiator support there where those fan mounts are, but rather we're going to do it at the front here. We do have 2 fans already installed, but I wanted to bust out some ML120 Pros from Corsair because these fans are much better. At least I think they look better. And they perform really well too. So 2 of these fans are obviously going to replace the 2 fans at the front, but before we install them, we have to remove those fans. So it looks like you might be able to pop this front panel off completely. I would just say grab it from like the bottom here and then just yank it off. Yep. So for the viewers watching, what computer are you using right now?
I have a 5-year-old laptop that I've been trying to make it work.
Okay, is it a gaming laptop or is it just like a regular kind of...
Yeah, it's an Acer gaming laptop that I got at Best Buy.
Okay, do you know if it has a discrete GPU on it or if it's using integrated graphics?
I believe it has an integrated graphics based on the little research I did between when I was deciding to get a new laptop or ask you to help me build something.
And have you actually gamed on it before?
I did.
What were you playing?
Death Stranding.
Okay.
I was playing Death Stranding on it for about 15 minutes before it started to get really choppy and really hot.
Okay.
So I took it and I set it on top of my air purifier, and I think I sent you a picture of it.
Yes, you did. That was brilliant. I enjoyed that.
So I think at that point I kind of decided, I was like, okay, I can't live like this anymore.
Yeah, fair enough. I like the fact that there's no branding whatsoever on this radiator. Good job, Phanteks. GG. All right, at this point, I think we can install our power supply. All right, you can go ahead and put this aside for now. We'll take this guy out of the box. AMP 750, 80 plus gold certified unit from Phanteks. By the way, shout out to Phanteks and the other vendors for providing a lot of the parts of this build. That includes Corsair and Asus. How did I forget Asus? Thank you guys, couldn't have done it without you. We got you a fully modular power supply, which means all the cables are detachable from the unit, which means that you only need to add the cables that you need to add, depending on the various devices and components in your build. The ones that you're definitely going to need right off the bat are your 24-pin ATX cable. We're also going to need our 8-pin EPS power cable for the CPU. We're also probably going to need at least a SATA cable. SATA cables are for powering your peripheral devices like fan controllers, RGB controllers, that sort of thing, pumps, if you have a liquid cooling system or something like that. And then I think the last thing we need is PCIe for your graphics card. We're going to go ahead and just use one of those, and that should do it for all of your cables. Now that you have all your cables connected to your power supply, you can actually mount the PSU into the case. And so what you want to do is just kind of take it, gently lower it into the case. This case looks to have a power supply bracket. See these 2 thumb screws? Go ahead and remove those. So you want to actually mount that to the back of your power supply first, and then slide the whole thing in from the back. Route those cables in, thread down those.
Thread down the 2 screws
Thread down
on
those
the bracket.
2 thumb screws. You're good. Cool. You've got a bunch of random cables in your case now, so we can sort of start taking care of that a little bit. So what I want you to do now is start pushing these cables through this opening. Push everything through there.
Everything.
Everything that is coming from your power supply. Look, it already looks so much better. Not just doing that. All right, for graphics, Asus. Thank you for hooking us up with an RTX 3080. This thing is absolutely insane. It was very hard to get. I know for them and for us as well. It's your GPU.
Nice.
This is your moment. This is definitely something that you have to do. Do you know how long people have waited in line at Micro Center to get one of these? Just for a chance. Just for a chance to buy one. Look at how massive that thing is. Look at how small this case is, and yet it's still gonna be able to fit. This actually came included with the case. It's basically just a bracket that goes to the bottom of the case if you wanted to mount the GPU vertically. When you install the GPU, I usually just, have case with one hand, GPU in the other. You want the connectors to go into the slot. Wiggle it in there. Oh, you have all this plastic wrap on the back, I didn't realize. Go ahead and take the packaging off.
Before we continue, a huge shout out to Manscaped for sponsoring this video. They actually just sent me their performance package kit, which has a bunch of tools and other products for my nether regions. Wow, there's actually a lot of stuff in here. They went balls out. Hey, hey, hey. So obviously the star of the show is this guy right here, the Lawnmower 3.0. It's a completely waterproof trimmer and it seriously reduces the number of nicks and cuts on your and nuts, okay? It's kind of magical. The Crop Preserver Ball Deodorant. For when you need it most, which, let's face it, is every day. Look, there's a ball toner. Oh my god. What's in this bag? What's in the bag? Oh, okay, we've got a brush, clippers, charging dock, and look at this, it's USB. You can charge the trimmer with your PC. Come on. What else we got in here? The Weed Whacker. This is for ear hair and for nose hair. And nose hair is basically like pubes on your face, so you gotta keep that in check. The Shears 2.0. This is a luxury nail kit. Fancy. So for a limited time, if you get this kit, you actually get 2 free included gifts as well. The Shed Travel Bag, which is actually a really nice bag. Look at that bag. Just look at that bag. That's a nice bag. And the Manscaped Anti-Chafing Boxer Briefs, which feel smooth as butter on your nutter. If you go to Manscaped right now and use my offer code, you'll get 20% off all this, plus free international shipping and the 2 free gifts. So a big thanks again from me and my balls to Manscaped for sponsoring this video.
Do the peel for the fans. Now you're a PC enthusiast.
Now we have it tight.
It's a little tight. Well done. And then now you can pretty much just wire these up. Probably best to go over the GPU for these. All right, we're on the home stretch. We're so close. Literally 2 more cables to plug in, and then it's just a matter of getting that side panel on.
Does it, which one goes where?
Oh, it doesn't matter. They're both the same. And then at this point, you really don't have much left to do here.
Well, so we have these left.
Yep.
There's 2 of these, right? Where's the second one?
Correct. Other one's right here. It's definitely not the easiest way to secure cables to the case, but once you get it in there, unlike Velcro or twist ties, these aren't gonna budge. Very stable. Yeah, it looks great. Honestly, for how small this case is, this is like pretty much as good as anyone could do. So I think you wanna put this side in first, kind of wedge it in the bottom, and then it should press down. Oh.
Well, there's a screw here.
Oh, all right, so we've been trying to put the side panel on for like the last 10, 15 minutes. And at first we were like wondering why anytime we'd push this side down, the other side would pop up and the push pin would immediately come out of this top left corner. Then we kind of realized that these little brackets, these metal brackets that are for cable management, they're supposed to hold the cables in place, which otherwise worked pretty well. Then we removed those, and lo and behold, we're still having the same issue with when we put this down, this edge comes up. We just can't seem to get this side panel completely flush. And our cables are completely flush. They're not popping out whatsoever. Everything that you see that might be a slight hair above the side panel line are easily pushed down. They're flexible. Why is this happening? And I guess that's one of the downfalls of the push pin design, is that it's just not quite as secure, not nearly as secure as an actual screw. Phanteks, if you have an answer, help us now. And then front panel can get popped on. Looks good. All right, and we can train these cables a little bit.
Compared to the rat's nuts that's behind it, that looks really clean.
Oh yeah, go ahead and plug that in. Power supply on, and of course, it's only tradition that you do the honors of pressing the power button on your new
My
PC.
new build?
Yeah.
All right, right here?
Yep. Uh-oh. All right, we've been trying to turn the system on, and it's been acting weird. We press the power button, nothing happens. We press it again, nothing happens. We press it again, and then it turns on suddenly, but it seems inconsistent. Alvaro just discovered that, what?
There's a delay when you press the power button.
There's a delay when you press the power button. When you press the button and when it actually physically turns on. Press it.
There's a delay.
I've never experienced a delay that long between the power button and the system turning on. And I'm wondering if that's okay, if that's normal. Like, should we be concerned that it takes like a whole, like what, 3 seconds almost?
That was a solid beat.
3 or 4 seconds for the system to power on. Usually I wouldn't do this, but all things considered, I'm gonna plug in a display cable just to make sure we're getting a video signal on a monitor really quick. All right, we got the monitor connected.
1 second delay.
1 second delay. Got a little shorter that time?
I think so.
It's like adapting or something. This is so bizarre. If we're not getting a video signal, first thing that comes to mind is that we need a BIOS update. We're using a Ryzen 3000 series chip, the B550 motherboard. It may need a BIOS update to be compatible with that CPU. If it didn't already ship that way out of the box. So fortunately, there's a BIOS flashback feature on this motherboard. Thank you, Asus. Where I can just go ahead and load up the latest BIOS onto a USB flash drive. We'll flash it really quick and see if that does the trick. Okay, BIOS up to date, at least according to the USB drive and the LED indicators on the back of the motherboard tray. So here we go, second attempt, or I don't know, what is like the 16th attempt to see if we can get a video signal out of this thing. There's no delay. Did we explain why there was a delay earlier on camera? No, we didn't. It's because the IO shield is actually partially covering the BIOS flashback button, so it was held down. It was actually pressed inward permanently, and that's what was causing the delay. As soon as we fixed it and slid the motherboard over so it was all fully aligned, the button popped out, and now it boots up instantly like a normal system should. And we're still waiting on a video signal here. Huh.
Not to sound negative, but does this cable work?
Yeah, it's worked. It's always worked. Doesn't hurt to try another one though.
Hey, question. This little USB cable, I don't know if it's seated all the way.
Oh, shit. Look at that. What's wrong with my DisplayPort cable? Or the DisplayPort on the card, or the DisplayPort on the monitor. Okay, we posted. We've cleared post. We're at the menu. We're ready to install Windows and stuff. And it was actually interesting because after we updated the BIOS, we still weren't getting a video signal. Alvaro suggested that maybe we try a different cable. We were using this DisplayPort cable, and we just switched over to using this HDMI one, and lo and behold, we're getting a video signal. That's another point for Alvaro. The only thing is that we're not able to really test how the system was functioning before the BIOS update because we didn't actually test it with the HDMI cable initially. But the point is that the system's now working, it's up and running, and you have now built your first system. So congrats. How was it?
It was great. I mean, I was a little nervous at the beginning, but you kind of walked me through, you helped me out, get the hang of it, and now I feel really happy, especially with it being a small form factor for like, even all the trouble we had with the cable management and kind of getting everything in there. I am excited to have something not so massive sitting on my desk.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a good small form factor to work with. It's not gonna take up too much space, but you've got a ton of horsepower in here that's gonna last you for years to come. So congrats on your first build. It looks great. You did a fantastic job, and you guys did a fantastic job watching this video. So thank you for that. Toss a like on it before you go. Get subscribed for more tech content on the way, and I'll see you guys in the next video.